Should the red transport belts on your opener ever be worn out, damaged, or otherwise need to be replaced, these are the 4 belts located on the top and the track of your opener. To remove these belts, the procedure is generally the same on any model Postmark opener. There'll be 2 screws in the track of the machine, one here just in front of the cutter, and one here just underneath the separator assembly. Those 2 screws we'll remove last, but we'll come back to those in a moment. We'll start by laying the machine on its back and removing these 4 screws to remove the lower transport cover. These 4 screws are T20 drive Torx bits. Once the screws are removed, the lower transport cover can simply be pulled away from the machine. At this point, you should have a clear view of the transport bar assembly. There are several more screws inside the machine that we'll need to remove before we can pull this out and change our belts. But we'll need to flip the machine around to the back to show you that, and we'll do that and get back to you in just a second. Once we've turned the machine around so we have a view of the back of the machine, we'll take off the rear cover with these 2 screws. These are also T20 drive Torx bits. The cover then just tilts slightly back and lifts out of place. Once inside the machine, we'll have to remove the 2 belts that drive the transport pulley. That are these 2. These will simply pull towards us slightly and rotate the pulley, and they'll come right off. Once those belts are off and in your hand, use a 3mm Allen wrench to remove the transport drive pulley. With that removed, it exposes 2 T30 bits, screws in the back of the machine. We'll remove both of those. Then there are 2 more that remain just to the side of the cutter assembly. There's these 2, also T30 Torx drives. With those removed, now we're ready to return to the front of the machine to finally pull the bar out of the assembly. Now that we're back at the front of the machine, we have the 2 screws remaining that I told you earlier. That's this one in front of the cutter and one located just underneath the separator assembly. These are M3 screws that use a T10 Torx driver. We'll remove the one in front of the cutter. It'll stay in place. Lift up the separator assembly and support the transport bar from underneath as you unscrew the final screw. Once that screw is loose, the transport bar will simply rotate down and out of the machine. From here, we'll simply roll off the belts and replace them with new ones, as we'll show you in just a moment. Once we have the transport bar assembly removed from the letter opener, it should look something like this. In order to remove the belts, we'll turn the bar upside down so that they rest directly on the table. From here, to remove the belts, take any particular belt and push away from the center of the transport bar assembly. Firmly push down on the transport bar and roll it along the table at the same time. As you do this, the belt will naturally roll itself off the pulley like that, and then can be removed. To install the belt, simply hook the belt back on. On the next pulley, we'll fully align it on the bottom and push it down against the table like this. From here, we simply pull towards the pulley with our finger and roll the belt along the table again to fully place the belt onto the pulleys. The process is the same for all 4 belts to replace any as needed. In case you should need to remove the longest transport belt on the assembly, you first have to remove the smallest belt on the assembly, which traps it on the transport bar. To remove this, we do it the same way we took off the other belts. We'll just push away from the transport bar while we roll it along the table. The belt will simply unhook and can be removed and set aside. Removing this belt is largely the same, except we more or less pinch the belt and pull it outwards as we roll the belt along the table and force the belt off of the larger pulley. Unhook it from the small idler pulley and remove it from the transport bar. To install the new belt, the process is largely the reverse of removal. We'll hook the belt on the end first. Pull the opposite end over the main drive shaft. Then we'll tuck the belt underneath the idler bolt bearings and ensure that it's fully seated on the rest of the bearings along the belt. Once we get to this point, we're going to pull the belt towards us as we roll the belt along the table, and it should naturally fall correctly into place. Now that we've changed the belts on the transport bar assembly, we need to reinstall the transport bar assembly into the machine. On the machine, the 2 screws that we took out last in the top of the track are likely still in place. We'll gently insert the bar into its position and rotate it up into the transport bar. From here, we need to hold the bar in place and get our screws started. This is sometimes easier said than done. Once those 2 screws are in place, the transport bar assembly will hold itself into place. We'll rotate the machine onto its back again to replace the lower transport cover. This we simply lay into place and replace the 4 screws in the corner of the bar. Now that we've put the track cover back on the front of the machine, we need to return to the rear to reinstall the transport drive pulley and the transport bar belts. Inside the machine, we'll start by replacing the 6mm T30 drive torque screws. And the 2 on the right side of the machine behind the cutter assembly. With those in place, we replace the drive pulley. We'll align the set screw with the flat on the shaft and slide it on. And hold it into place while we tighten the 3mm set screw. With that secure, we'll replace the drive belts. These two silicone O-ring belts, push one behind the pulley and let it rest while you put the other one on. This one will pull over the motor pulley and place it on the inside groove of the pulley and onto the drive pulley. The remaining belt we'll put back over and roll it onto the motor pulley. The transport bar assembly is now complete, and you can replace the rear cover on the machine and return it to service. To install the rear cover, we'll hold it like so. Tuck the bottom edge just inside the tabs located in the corners of the chassis and slide it down into position. From here, we take the two 4mm T20 drive screws and put them back into the machine. And that's it.